No, no, I will go back after. Don't stop. No, no, no. No, no.
Ready? Sorry, ready? Ready?
Good afternoon. We extend a very warm welcome to all present here to celebrate the 93rd Foundation Day of Indian Statistical Institute. You will be pleased to know that this event is being organized jointly with the ISI Alumni Association. Before we proceed, I request you to keep your phone either in switch off mode or in silent mode. As we all know, ISI was founded by Professor in December 1931, and the 17th day of December has since been observed as the Foundation Day of the Institute. From its humble beginning in the Presidency College, it has been developed into a world-renowned center of learning, which conducts several academic programs of international repute and fosters exemplary research activities. It has also made significant contributions in social and economic planning of the Government of India. Each year, the Foundation Day is the right time for ISI to look back with pride and joy on all its achievements in the past year and to renew its energy so that it can carry on with even greater vigor. However, this year, December 17, is a Sunday. Hence, the celebration has been preponed to the closest working day to enable the ISI family to participate in large numbers. I request Professor Shankhamitra Bandyopadhyay, the Director of ISI, to deliver the welcome address.
Good afternoon. A very warm welcome to all of you to the 93rd Foundation Day of the Indian Statistical Institute that we are celebrating today. Though the day comes 2 days later, day after tomorrow is the actual Foundation Day. 93 years, so we've completed 92 years of our existence, embarking on the 93rd year. And it's been a long journey with ups and downs, with sad moments, with very happy moments. But learning from all these, we are here today celebrating the 93rd Foundation Day and celebrating also our scientists, as well as we have a lecture lined up, Dr. Nilanjan Chatterjee, who is an alumnus of this institute. At the end, we have a cultural program by our students and faculty members or our alumni. And we wish to make this program a balanced one with both academics as well as cultural activities. And this time we are hosting this in association with the Indian Statistical Institute Alumni Association. And I would like to thank Professor Srivastav for suggesting that we do it together, since ISI AA would also have organize some such programs, so we thought we'd do it together. ISI, after having completed 92 years, is now looking forward to the 100th year. And we need to, from now on, decide or take a call on where we want to see ISI in its 100th year. And what do we need to do now to achieve those targets, to achieve those goals? And as we are in a period of churn, a lot of things are happening outside. We are also trying to adapt to the immense changes which are happening in the domain of, for example, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and how we cope, how we again outperform, because ISI has been known to outshine others, to do things much earlier than even the world might be thinking. Our programs, for example, the multidisciplinary nature of the programs that we had from their very initiation. Today, India is thinking about that. So I hope and wish that we continue in our path of excellence, the way shown to us by our founder, as also by a large number of brilliant scientists that this institute has produced. Thank you very much for coming and joining us on this joyous occasion, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the speech. Now I invite our Honorable President, Professor Shankar Kumar Pal, to share some thoughts about our institute on this special occasion.
A very good afternoon to all of you. And I welcome to this 93rd Foundation Day celebration of the Institute, which is being jointly organized by Indian Statistical Institute, Alumni Association, and ISI. This is indeed a unique event, I consider. In my history of association with institutes since 1975. And particularly this 17th December, I believe many of our faculty members do not know that this is the Foundation Day. And it is indeed a good opportunity to start, and also I would request the ISI Alumni Association to continue this program the way you have started. Because many times we have seen we start some program, but after a few years, it dies. This is I noticed, and I've been allowed 3 minutes, okay? So the next test I'm talking about, I have 2 suggestions. Because I was the director, I initially started Felicitation, Professor Oru Bose and Professor Probal Choudhury. In 2006, they jointly they received Bhattacharya Prize, one in 2005, 2006, celebration 2006. So I thought when I was given the award in 1990, no one felicitated, not from my department, not my guide, anything. So when my student got Bhattacharya Award, I have just personally given her a gift. You remember? Okay, and also my department. Similarly, I started from institute that it should be felicitated. At least I started with the Bhattacharya Prize. And I remember Professor B.V. Rao and others, they all appreciated very much. But after all, in ISI, once director changes, everything changes. So I hope this system will continue. I have 2 suggestions. If your fund permits, director, you just give some lighting 2 days. And also, this is before Christmas, everything is in the festive mood. That will be a good thing. I just told you last year also, but you didn't do it. Now this time is here. And second thing, lighting, just. And second thing, I have learned it from Imperial College, because I am a graduate from them. Because you are, during our convocation time, we are just awarding about 279 this time. বছর 270. Oh yeah, right? Huh? In person, yeah, no, okay. Total awardee
430.
430. So this time, those who have graduated 25 years before, just give them a letter that your association, please, we are reminding you, your association is our institute. That will give a feeling to the youth that institute has not forgotten you. And at the same time, institute also feels that we have a whole association. And if possible, give a small typing or something as a token of it. If your budget permits and if your infrastructure permits, that's the two requests I give. I think giving a letter at the time of competition to all who have completed 25 years, then you can make it for 50 years also. So 25, 50, it will be enough. So if you do this, that will give a very strong vibe here. Because Sushma Srivastava was always telling about meeting our spread of alumnus. That's actually very much the IITs they do it, Indian society they do it, but we do not have that. Okay, so this one, this related to suggestions. I said thank you, thanks for inviting me. And I again, it's a new year coming, so happy New Year for the better tomorrow. 2024. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such an inspiring speech. I now request Professor Shoshi Mohan Srivastava, Chairman, ISI Alumni Association, to say a few words.
Welcome you all. I'm speaking on behalf of ISI Alumni Association. I have been associated with this institute since 1971, and I became chairman. I have been earlier also member of the executive committee, but we didn't have technology that good. And we are Alumni Association is making its best effort now to reach our very, very illustrious and all alumni world over. And those who have not joined, I'm very soon going to. I also have a list of people, alumni who have not joined. I have made a list. In fact, I start sending them. I have already started sending them whatever events are happening in ISI. And I will make a request that please join. And our interest in alumni, at least from my point of view, is not only that we want financial contribution or help our students when they go abroad. We definitely have extremely, many of our alumni are world renowned scientists in their own right, and they are doing extremely well. And we would also like academic cooperation, open a door. And Niranjan was my student. In fact, he attended his first lecture in ISI was given by me when he joined BSTAC first year in 1990 when he joined. And I'm extremely happy that he has turned into a great statistician, a great biostatistician. And this is the age of interdisciplinary science, and this is something which ISI should develop. And our alumni will come. Those who are settled abroad will be of great help. I have requested my alumni to also spend a sabbatical here. I don't have any right to invite them, but I hope Institute will take benefit out of our alumni. And please, I should also thank Sangamita Vandapadhyay, the director, that she listened to my very readily. She agreed that this program that ISIA used to celebrate Alumni Day around the Foundation Day. That is how it was picked. Whether it's good people, more people will be there in coming home. And this time I suggested that no, since it is so close to ISI Foundation Day, and for any institute, for any organization, the Foundation Day is one of the most important days. And we must remember, look back our past and see what we can do. And then I suggested the director, and I'm really very grateful to her that she came out with, she accepted my suggestion and wonderful. I was watching all the preparation going on for this program, and I hope this will continue. ISI will continue to join ISI AA. This also shows that ISI itself values the alumni of the institute. With this, and thanks for coming, and also I thank Nilanjan because I heard his. I knew that he is doing very well. I keep track of what my students are doing, but I heard his interview and I was very impressed. And immediately I got in touch with him, and I said that you will have to come and give a lecture. He said he is coming in winter that time, and he really responded well, and he has come. So thank you very much, Nilanjan. And that's it. I hope you will have. You will also enjoy the cultural function today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Today, we are honored to have with us an illustrious alumnus, Professor Nilanjan Chatterjee, who has very kindly agreed to deliver a lecture on this occasion. I request Professor Srivastava to introduce the speaker and conduct this session.
এই তোমার ইমেলে লগ ইন করা যাবে? তুমি আমাকে ইমেল পাঠিয়েছিলে ইন্ট্রোডাকশন অফ ইউর, তোমাকে দিতে হবে ওটা আমার, হ্যাঁ, কেননা এখানে আমার ইন্টারনেট নেই। না, কপি টু এখানে করলেও এখানে ফরওয়ার্ড করে এখানে ফরওয়ার্ড করে দেবে। Oh, I have got it. I have got it. No. Yeah. So it is a great pleasure to have Dr. Nilanjan Chatterjee with us. He did he joined ISI as a research student in 1990 and passed out in 95 as a youngster student. I was one of his teachers, and he was His class had really, his class was a star study, and he was also one of the stars of his class. And one of the things that I have liked very much about his future, I mean, latter career is that though he, ah, though he loved mathematics very well, particularly probability theory, and the course that he has taken from Professor Alok Goswami, he cannot forget. But slowly he turned into applied area, and that is the part that I don't know very well. So I'm reading from what I have been given. So he is a distinguished professor at the Department of Biostatistics, Bloomberg School of Public Health, and Department of Oncology, School of Medicine at Johns Hopkins University. Before joining Johns Hopkins University, he led the biostatistics branch of the Division of Cancer Epidemiology and Genetics of the US National Cancer Institute during 2008-2015. So look at the graph. He started with loving mathematics and got motivated in Seattle, if I am right. Right, in your interview, I heard you got influenced by a professor in Seattle. Huh? And he switched over and became one of the very eminent person in this area. And this is something that we should draw inspiration from. Don't stick to the same thing. Be open. He is known for his foundational and methodological contributions to multiple areas of modern biomedical data science, including large-scale analysis of genetic associations, gene-environment interactions, and predictive model building by synthesis of information from various data sources. His work has been recognized by numerous prestigious national and international awards, including the Mortimer Spiegelman Award from the American Public Health Association and celebrated President's Award from the Committee of the Presidents of the Statistical Society. By the way, the second award is considered to be the Fields Medal in Statistics. And if I remember his interview well, so far he is the only person of Indian origin who has got this award. Am I correct? So a big hand to him. And this is what impressed me a lot about our alumni. I can mention about 10, 12 of them who are world leaders. And we institutes should not only look for financial support, which we need, actually alumni needs. Alumni had no income, which only survives on contributions, but that is not what we are only looking for. At least I'm not that is what only looking for. I shall be very happy if the institute utilizes the expertise of our alumni world over. He currently serves on the Scientific Advisory Committee of the Historic Radiation Effect Research Foundation, Hiroshima, Japan, and the Population and Prevention Research Committee of the Foundation of Cancer Research, United Kingdom. And just now he told me that he is trying to have a collaboration with Bombay University, IIT Bombay and Johns Hopkins. And now with these introductions, I invite Niranjan to please come in.
Let me check.
Thank you, Dr. Srivastava, for this kind introduction and the invitation. There is no big honor than being invited by your root institute, where you learned so much. And I was a student here coming in 1990 and passed out in 95 after finishing my MSc degree. And also, very big thank you to Dr. Bandyopadhyay for doing this in coordination with ISI. This is again a very big honor to have this coordinated by both ISI and the ISI Alumni Association. I'm going to talk about some work I've been very passionate about, actually starting from my PhD thesis work, and this is a continuation of the research I've been doing for almost 20 years. It's a slow pace of work because another hat I wear is focuses on statistical genetics, which takes a lot of my time. But this is an area I find it very fascinating, and for both theoretical foundation point of view as well as a statistical application point of view. So that's something in this talk I'll try to summarize some of our most recent work in this area. But before I start, I mean, as Dr. Bandyopadhyay mentioned, we have lost some great people from ISI, and two people I really want to remember today is one of my most favorite professors, Dr. Thomas Babji, who taught us complex analysis in my MSc first year. Amazing teacher, amazing person, and also my very dear classmate, Shoga Ghosh, who was my classmate, but also my roommate in the ISI boys hostel in the first year. So it really hurt me very badly, because he was the point person for me to ISI. Whenever I came to ISI, I'll go to his office and not having him here. It's a really sad moment. I also want to start by my talk by acknowledging the people who did the work, and one of my this particular work is being led by one of my final year PhD students, and but the work has been built upon the work by another PhD student and also an ISI alumni, Prashanjit Kundu, who has graduated from the Science a few years back. So this is the we know, like, a lot of the statistical methods for building models like regression models or even machine learning methods, they kind of assume that you have this kind of what we call rectangular data structure. That means you have a set of individuals, and on each individual we have a set of features that we are measuring, and maybe based on the features we may want to predict some outcome, future outcome. I work a lot of epidemiology problem where you want to predict based on various risk factor profiles, genetic data, lifestyle factors, you have to predict who might get high risk of developing heart disease in the future or particular cancer in the future. But a lot of the times in this modern era, we are facing that the more heterogeneous type of data set, where you may have multiple studies, where within a study you may have some individuals where there are more measurements, like the more type of measurements available, and then some other individuals where there are less measurements available. That is by design you can have, because some of these measurements, like for example, biomarker measurements, can be very expensive to have measured on all the people in a particular study. But you can also have other studies which may be interested in similar goal. For example, again, giving an example, I work on a lot of breast cancer. There might be a lot of multiple breast cancer studies, but they are all trying to understand what causes breast cancer incidence, and they want to develop a model. But they may have measured different sets of variables. Some might be overlapping, some might be non-overlapping. And the question is that that if you want to develop a model that to again predict that outcome, that based on all of the variables that are measured across these different studies, at least measured once in across these studies, what are some of the methods we can figure out? So that is the kind of data integration problem we are working on, and in particular in this context, so today I'm going to talk about some like how to develop machine learning type of methods in this kind of heterogeneous data set problems. A particular application that I have in mind, which I will illustrate, is this very famous study. It's based on UK, which is a study of which has recruited almost 500,000 people. So if you think about the number of rows, is 500,000, and these people are being then followed over time to and then at the baseline at the beginning they have measured a lot of different factors. based on interviewing the participants, but also collecting their biological samples. They have collected a lot of what we call baseline information at the beginning of the study. And then as time passes, they have linked this kind of data set to various type of population registries based on which they can determine which of these individuals, for example, have developed a particular cancer or are hospitalized for heart disease or diabetes, severe diabetes, or even died, and they have linked this data set. So there's complete follow-up over time that which of these people are developing various diseases. And then on top of that, more recently, they are using various high-throughput technologies. On particular technology, I'll focus on the proteomics technology, which is a new type of platform that allows you to measure thousands of proteins in our blood that are potentially very important measurements, because protein kind of captures all kind of lifestyle exposures that we have had, and that could be important marker of diseases. But because these are expensive measurements, they don't have, out of 500,000 people, they have only measured that up 50,000 people. And they are potentially interested in, we want to develop a model for predicting a particular disease outcome, that's a heart disease, using the proteomic and the traditional risk factor data, like for example, heart disease, if you think of risk factors, age is a strong risk factor, obesity is a risk factor, smoking habit, alcohol consumption, cholesterol level, these are called traditional risk factors that are already used in practice actually in coming up with this score that actually guides in various countries who, for example, might be screened earlier or who might take some medication for heart disease prevention. But there is an effort to improve the performance of this model using this new type of data, the proteomic biomarker. And the question is that if you want to develop a model, what is the best way to analyze the data? So currently, for example, if we analyze the data, only this piece of the data, where those using the data on those people who have both the risk factor data and proteomic data. But as you can imagine, that's a lot of information, because the risk factor data was available on a lot larger number of people. So potentially, we should be able to use that to improve the model performance. Another type of application I work that comes back to statistical genetics, like I work a lot on the statistical genetics in a particular type of study called genome-wide association studies. So these are studies where people measures on potentially millions of genetic markers in this single nucleotide polymorphism on tens of thousands of people. Like these people might have, some of them people might have developed a disease like breast cancer, and these are called cases, and then there are people who have not developed the disease at all control. And then based on those data, what the typically data perform what is called association study, like we look at the association of each SNP with the outcome, like for example, the breast cancer, and then they report what is called summary statistic. For example, if you are doing logistic regression of the disease outcome on those SNPs, you can report the all ratio estimates of the parameters and the standard errors, and those are actually widely available. These are called summary statistics. And summary statistics in the sense that you do not have the individual level data. Somebody has done some analysis, and somebody has created some model, and they're giving you the output of the model. So that's a very key feature of what we are going to talk about. Like how can we exploit not the even if you do not have the individual level data, somebody has created a model with the data and they have shared some parameters, how to take advantage of that. So these are called summary statistics, and these are like showing for different SNPs, what is the association of the SNPs with a particular disease. In this particular, for example, we are looking at this particular form of skin cancer, which is melanoma, and these are publicly available. But you can imagine that this is a very simple model. If I want to create a more complex model, where, for example, I want to look at what is the interaction of some of those genetic variants with some of the non-genetic factors. For example, in this case, this melanoma. Melanoma risk is a skin cancer is highly affected by sun exposure. Especially in the white population, people who have got easily tan, they're high risk of developing this cancer. So there's a lot of interest in asking the question, like, and some of those other features, like that what you call non-genetic factors, like skin color, itself is highly heritable, because as you can imagine that there are a lot of genes which determines our skin tone. So there are a lot of interesting questions about exploring the interaction between these SNPs that are measured in the GWAS study, but we also want to look at the interaction of SNPs with other factors like age, sex, and also like the risk factors like hair color and these are skin factors. But we cannot do this based on the summary statistic data. If we have some individual level data where we have all of the different measurements, the outcome and the covariates and the SNPs, then we can try to create a more complex model looking at interactions and so on. But these are, but this, if I do it only based on a study based on individual level data, that might be too small. And whereas these external studies which provide the summary statistics, which do not have the covariate, they can be very, very large, they're very, very powerful. So the question is that when I do this kind of analysis with a complex model, how can I incorporate that external information from the external model? So that's sort of the theme of the today's talk, that even if you do not have individual level data from those other studies, how can you, if you just listen model parameters, how can you use that information into your analysis? So that's sort of the background and the kind of applications we are working on. So I'm going to go into the core of the actual methodological portion of the talk. So I'm going to give you a little bit more background about the methodology that is already available, and I'm going to describe a little bit what has gone on in the statistics, but also some in the machine learning field, and just to make sure that we have a common language to talk between the fields. And then I'll talk about this technique we have developed called generalized method of moment for heterogeneous learning, and this is particularly in the context of developing very high dimensional predictive models. And then I'll come back to the application and finish up with some concluding remarks. So there is actually a rich history in statistics, like when you are analyzing a data set, particular data set. But suppose you have some external information about the partial information from some other sources on the type of questions you are trying to address. How can you use that external information when you're trying to fit your model? What can you use? And so okay. There is this organism where they have examples of it. So basically, and you can do standard analysis, but in standard analysis, you do some so then after waiting, you of the data, you match it with the so these are calculations because you make starting data that external to the external population. And this goes back quite early on. I think this is one of the earlier paper explicitly talking about this, but I think there is even a longer history of this area, and so these are some of the references. And then there are some likelihood-based approaches starting from this empirical likelihood-based approaches and to constraint maximum likelihood approaches that we have developed, where they try to kind of define likelihood of the data that you have, the individual level data, with the fact in mind that there is an external information outside the data from the external sources, and you can start defining different types of likelihood. And then there is another area that where it comes from the economics field. It's called the generalized method of moments, which is this is kind of the original paper of the method of generalized method of moment. But this has been used also to integrate disparate information from multiple data sets. And this will be our main method. I'm going to talk about in detail how this kind of helpful this does the job. But there is a series of work in that area. We have also contributed to that and recently. And there are various variations of this idea that how to incorporate external information. So here are some machine learning terminologies. So one is called transfer learning. So transfer learning is a concept where you basically try to transfer knowledge from one data set to another data set through some already fitted model. You do not actually have the data set. You do some task first on the first data set. And for example, the task might be a model fitting, and then take the parameters of the model to help you to do a better analysis of the new data set. So that's called transfer learning, and that in the computer science literature. And some of the transfer learning method can also talk about this concept called, because the data sets come from two different populations, there could be some issues related to heterogeneity, which I'll come back to that towards the end of my talk.
and these are called hybrid transfer learning for the population heterogeneity. But the framework we are in, what is called actually in computer science, is called heterogeneous transfer learning, because we are trying to transfer knowledge from between two different domains which are in different dimensions. Because the models we talk about in the external model, they might be in different, they are typically lower dimension than the model I'm trying to develop, the target model, which is a much higher dimension. So because of the heterogeneity dimension, these are called heterogeneous transfer learning. And one of the key things about this in this space is how do you make the models talk in different dimensions, because the parameters are different interpretations, and so you have to come up with a common language so that the two models can talk, which are in different space. And with the hybrid transfer learning, the concept of which can combine the kind of heterogeneity in the population and heterogeneity in model dimension at the same time. These are called hybrid transfer. Okay, so let's get more into the heart of the method. So I'm going to start with the most simple setting and describe how the method works. But this could be generalized to more complex setting. So think about there is a main study that which we have individual level data. And on this main study, we had a particular outcome that we would like to, let's say, predict for new people. Like this could be who has heart disease or not, who has breast cancer or not, let's say, the example. And then there are features based on which we are trying to predict that outcome. And those features have been partitioned into three types of variables. One is called some study-specific adjustment factors. So these are design variables that are very unique to that main study, which we cannot assume that these design variables are the same between the external study from which we are trying to borrow information, because they're really used for designing this particular study. And what would be an example? For example, study center, right? The centers are very specific to particular studies, and and those centers, one study may not be even defined for the centers for other studies. Or it could be key variables, like for example, age, sex, and those are things that are used for sampling subjects more efficient in a particular study. And if you have used those variables to sample in a non-random way to include people in the main study, then you cannot assume the effect of those variables are to be the same between the internal and the external studies. So these are called study-specific adjustment factors. And then there are some variables Z, which are called overlapping variables between the internal and external studies, on which we will try to borrow information from the external studies. And then there are variables which are only measured in the main study, because the main study is assumed to have a more rigorous study, which is collecting a lot more data. And so these are called unmatched features. And then similarly, we have the external study, for which you may or may not have the individual level data. So we can have somebody might have created a model and shared parameters from that model. But the main thing is that it's a similar structure, but they have its own study-specific design variables, and then they have these overlapping variables with the main study, and I assume that we have the same outcome we try to predict. So the question is that how do I take, so I could, of course, if I have a main study, I'm trying to fit a model, like, logistic regression model, linear regression model, lasso, or some kind of machine learning model. I can just ignore the external data. I can just analyze the data from the main study and get it done. But the problem we're trying to handle is that how do you borrow the information from an external study, which has less variables, and the model is developed in one dimension, to this larger study. So there are two steps, to do that. So first, I'll show this concept of reduced model that allows you to kind of take parameters from the external study and say that same parameters should be valid for the main study on the reduced model. And then the next step would be like connecting the reduced model. And the reduced model, I'll introduce what is the reduced model, and to the main target model, which we're trying to develop with all the different values. So there are two main steps. So what kind of target model we are trying to develop? So we are in the setting of this kind of generalized linear model type of framework. So this is, if you are familiar with this generalized linear model, so these are a general type of model. It covers linear regression, logistic regression, Poisson regression, all kind of typical, commonly used regression model that falls under this framework. So you can see it's a predictive model we're trying to develop, like, try to predict Y based on a set of X. And then the number of variables X could be very high dimensional. So that's why we have to think about some machine learning techniques for model parameter regularization, and also we are not only interested in what we call prediction, but once we have selected a model, you are also interested in inference. That means that after I selected that the model cross-validation, you want to do post-selection inference. Then can you say something about which variables are statistically significant? What is the estimated effect? And 95% confidence interval. And these are non-standard problems because they've already used the data to do a lot of stuff with the variable selection and stuff like that. So that's why you need special technique called post-selection inference, like where you have to account for the fact that you have selected the model, and then based on the model, you are doing the inference. Okay, so that's sort of the setup. So now think about again, if I have the main study, and again, I keep reminding of the structure of the main study, and we're trying to fit a model like that. And so if I had no information from the external study, we could just fit a standard model, and standard model fitting the maximum likelihood type of method basically correspond to solving some scored equations. And the scored equations in this case take the generalized linear model. It takes this form. This is the population version of your sample estimating equation. So it's basically the derivative of the log likelihood of the maximum likelihood that you're doing, and the population version of it. These are the sample version of it. And then in the high dimension, we have to allow for additional terms to do model regularization under various type of penalty functions. But we want to use data from the external study. So first we have to connect some of the external study to the internal study. And how do we do that? And that will be done through this concept of what is called reduced model. So what is the reduced model? So remember in the external study, we have fitted a model, or somebody else has fitted a model. You do not need your actual individual level data, where you fit the model of the y on the study specific design variable a tilde and z, and we have extracted the parameters of those reduced model and maybe the variance covariance matrix. And that's called the summary level information from the external study. And this method works with you do not need the individual level data. You need the summary level information from the external study. So it can use something called federated learning, where that means that you have different center, people want to fit a complex model, but people can do their own thing in their center, and instead of sending the individual level data, they send you the model parameters, right? And you take advantage of the model parameters instead of the individual level data. And so then to connect that, then said, okay, in the main study, I can also fit a reduced model, right? Because I have the flexibility, I can drop the W and just fit a model of Y on the same of A and Z. And that's because that would be the close correspondence with the external model. And then what parameters you would expect to get, like the theta parameter associated with the A variable, which is the regression effect of the design variables on the outcome, and then the regression effect of the Z variables on the outcome. And then what you make a big assumption here is that after adjusting for the study specific design variables, we don't assume that those effects are the same between internal and external study, because those will be very different. But the remaining variables, the overlapping variables, they have the same effect between the internal and the external study after adjusting for the study specific effect. Under this reduced model. So this notice that this emphasis on the reduced model, so it looks like very similar to the target model, but in the reduced model, we have dropped the W variable. Where the target model actually includes the W variables, because that is something we want to include in the hybrid model. So this is sort of the connection between how we connect the assumptions behind it, how to connect the external study to the internal study, right? We have to make some assumption about some kind of homogeneity or transportability of parameters between studies, otherwise there's no way to borrow information. So this is kind of that assumption. And we'll talk about toward the end how to realize the assumption part. If you do expect that there's some kind of heterogeneity, can we do something bigger without making the assumption? Then finally, so that's the first part of the triangle. If you remember that this picture, that we have to do the connection first is how to connect the external study to the main study, to the reduced model. But that is not what I'm interested in. I'm actually interested in fitting a bigger model, which is the model that includes the W variables, and that's called the target model. So how do I now connect the reduced model to the target model? That's the next. So I'll show a little bit of algebra and I'll show the geometry behind it, how to connect, and this is very fundamental to whatever we do, like how to connect model parameters in different dimensions, right? That's very fundamental. And because that's how we're going to borrow information. So algebraically, what we can show that is that, so if you think about a reduced model, like in the main study, and the population parameter, you think about what is it? What does it do? And we're basically solving this kind of population estimating function, right? That is the definition of the theta that we have estimated from the main study. Now, if you write down the expectation and rewrite it in terms of the full model, that involves the beta parameter, that is the target model given y given x. So some rearrangement of terms, you can show that equation boils down to, if you write down that expectation in terms of the y given x and z, the x is the full set of covariate, and then some iterative conditional expectation, you can derive this equation. Now, what is the special thing about this equation? Note that this equation now involves beta. Beta is the parameters of the target model, which include the W. But that's what we are interested in estimating. We're not interested in estimating theta. Theta is just a vehicle to borrow information from the external to the internal study. But this shows a very general relationship between parameters of a reduced model and extended model. And in fact, we have results that shows that even with beyond generalized linear model or exponential family, you can write down equations in this kind of form that shows that what is the connection between, suppose you have a probit model with variable x1 and x2 for predicting a binary outcome, and you have another logistic regression model with x1, x2, x3, x4, and x5. What's the connection between the parameters of those two models? So you cannot explicitly, in general, you cannot explicitly write down a relationship, but you can write down the equation that establishes the connection between the parameters. And this is basically that equation. And then if you have that equation, then you can think about how this equation can help me to estimate beta. That is the parameter. So here we basically borrow information from the external study, because you can think about theta has two parts. One is the effect of the study specific design variables, which you are estimating from the main study itself, and then the effect of the overlapping variable, which we assume that can be borrowed from the external study. And typically the external studies are much larger, because although it is collecting smaller number of variables, but because it's easy to measure, it could be 5 times, 10 times, or 20 times larger than the main study. So that can bring you a lot of efficiency by borrowing that information from the external study. Okay, so let's put a little bit of geometry behind you. What are the equations doing? And this is very general. So think about it. This is the equation we established in this paper, and where we showed that basically, suppose we are trying to fit a model, a regression model, again predictive model, to predict an outcome y on condition on x and z. And think about that's the probability space. That bigger square is the entire probability space on which that conditional distribution can lie. But suppose now I am considering a particular class of parametric model. That is, I'm trying to fit, right? So here, I'm assuming that that class is correct, that means it can properly, correctly describe the true probability law, so that the true probability law is a point in this oval shape. That the parametric family captures the true probability law. And when you're doing maximum likelihood, basically, without, if we ignore the external data, what are we doing? We're just trying to kind of maximize the some kind of likelihood based on this conditional distribution. And now suppose somebody else has fitted a model, and maybe another study, and maybe we, like the data set outside data is so large, and there is no uncertainty left in the when fitted the model, but it's a reduced model. That means it is a model they have fitted based on y given x, and the z variable was not there. And then they will estimate some parameters theta, which is going to be different than beta. The dimension is different, interpretation is different. So there is, in general, there is no obvious connection. But if you want to think of what is the connection between the theta and how can information on this space can help you to kind of narrow down, kind of the estimation in this space. So one way to think about is that, so think about if I have a true distribution in this space, and if I do a projection, that what is the corresponding law is going to be for the distribution of y given x, you'll get a point in this space. And that point can be maybe outside the kind of parametric model you are considering, for the external studies. Because think about, there are a lot of models which are not collapsible, like a logistic regression model is a non-collapsible model. That means if you assume logistic regression model in this space, and it still fit a logistic regression model in the lower dimensional space, we already know that the lower dimensional logistic regression model cannot be correct, because if it is logistic regression model in the higher dimension, then it is not collapsible and it is a different model. But that is okay. So in this after projection, the true probability law might be outside that class of model we are considering. And if you still force a model fitting like maximum likelihood, what are you doing? Like, what do we do? Like, when you fit maximum likelihood under a model, but the model is not correct, we still get some valid interpretation. And that goes back to Hoover, like the misspecification properties of maximum likelihood under misspecification of model. And there's a very nice geometric interpretation. What it does is that it tries to find the point, the maximum likelihood, in this space, constant in the space, that's going to minimize the distance between from this space to the true probability law. It is some kind of true that likelihood distance. So that's what we know. So now, what my problem here is that somebody has given me this point, that because they have fitted the model and they have get an estimate of theta hat, and that kind of will correspond here. So how can I use that to get an inference, beta inference for beta? So you can flip that problem. So you said, okay, I'm going to maximize, find the kind of value the beta in this space and try to maximize the likelihood. But I will also look at the projection and try to make sure that this projection value has minimizes some distance with respect to that point. So that's an additional information. And that the equation I showed, basically that converts that geometry into algebra. That some kind of projection happening, some orthogonality and stuff. So then what do we do? So we have your standard estimating function that we get from the maximum likelihood, that we ignore the external data. And then through the external, because we have information from the external study, we define some additional estimating function that incorporates the information from the external data, and these have become more equations than the in addition to your standard likelihood-based as-4 equations. Now, one tricky thing here is that what is that the first set of equation itself, the number this itself has if you look at the dimension, this dimension is the number of equation is same as number of unknowns, right? That's your standard maximum likelihood score equation, right? So how many equations you get will be the same as the number of parameters after taking the derivative. But now I'm adding more equations, but the number of unknown parameters has not changed. They is the same. Beta is the number of unknown parameters. So we have this situation called over-identified. That means we have more equations than unknown. And this is where the generalized method of moment technique comes. That the original generalized method of moment method was proposed that when you are in this situation, the over-identified set of equations, you cannot solve them to be exactly zero. So what you can do, the next best thing, that you can say find a solution that will bring the value of those vectorized equation closest to zero in some kind of geometric distance and distance sense. And this is what this is done. So what you try to minimize now is this quadratic form, U transpose C and U. C is something a matrix you have to define, and but you can see that this is a quadratic and this. And you can pretend that this is like a negative log actually. Some kind of for many sets, because try to minimize that quantity. But then we also have an additional challenge, because we are trying to estimate beta, which can be potentially very high dimension, and so we have to allow for model regularization so that we do not overfit the data. And that's why we introduce on top of this kind of quadratic distance function, we introduce these penalty functions, which can be any type of penalty function that you want. For example, from lasso to Weege, elastic net, or adaptive lasso. We will focus on the lasso and adaptive lasso penalty functions in our work. So that's sort of the kind of the basic idea about how you use the GMM idea to combine disparate information from multiple data sets, define an objective function, introduce a penalty into the objective function so that you can fit high dimensional model, and then that's your basic machinery for doing the inference. Now let's talk about a little bit of theory behind this. So one thing is that we might wonder, what is that C? That C I should choose. And you can show that you can choose actually any C that will give you a kind of valid estimate in the sense that it will be consistent estimator of beta. But if you want to get the most efficient estimator, then the C that will work the best here would be if you find what is the asymptotic covariance of this quantity, let's call this delta off, and we have derived a form of that theoretically, that it has n go to infinity, and there are two n here. One is the sample size for the main study, and another the sample size for the external study. So there are two n going on, and we assume that they go to infinity at a rate so that the ratio is a constant. And with that kind of asymptotic, you can show that this follows this quantity, the score functions, follows a nice distribution, normal 0, and with some delta. And then you can show that the optimal weight metric that should be used for GMM is that delta inverse. So that's a well-known theory comes from the GMM theory, that you can use any C, it will give a valid estimator, but the optimal C is basically depends on the variance covariance matrix of that quantity. But of course, that variance covariance quantity will depend on the true value of it. So what you need to do is like, first you need to come up with an initial estimator and get the initial estimator from then to get the estimate of the delta, and then rerun the GMM and to get the final estimator that will be the most optimal. So here are some of the main developments we have done. Like one is like we really wanted to use this algorithm and not just propose as a statistical method. We really wanted to analyze very high throughput data. And for example, the data set we are talking about, the UK Biobank data, which has like 500,000 people, potentially 1,500 or so protein biomarkers, and many risk factors. So whatever we do, the algorithm has to be very scalable for analyzing that kind of data. And so what we are able to do, and we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, because for example, fitting model kind of the lasso or adaptive lasso or elasticnet, they're a very powerful package developed by the Stanford group, like the GLNet package, which they have put a lot of effort to optimize the algorithm, and so that it can do very large scale data analysis. So what we have done is that I'll show a little bit maybe that we can rewrite the objective function in a convenient way so that we can reuse the GLNet package for optimization. We don't have to rewrite, so it's a manipulation. So that's what we have done. And we have also developed some asymptotic theory for post-selection inference, which I'll talk about very briefly, and then go to the application. Okay, so the implementation, the computation implementation. So what we showed is that, actually my student showed here, is that basically if you have that C matrix, it's a positive definite and symmetric matrix, and if you can have the square root decomposition, then that objective function for the GNM objective function can be rewritten in the form of a standard least square objective function, which is this type, where this pseudo, you have defined this called pseudo design matrix and pseudo outcome vector with some matrix manipulation, and then this objective function is going to look like this is basically the standard least square objective function, where x is then replaced by the pseudo x and the y has been replaced by the pseudo outcome. And that's great because and then for linear regression, and this is exact. There is this x pseudo and y pseudo does not depend on previous value of it. So that is great, right? Because then what I can do is that I can use the GLNet package, which can allow you to do penalized regression with the list square problems, and just I have to modify the x and y in a suitable way, and then I can use the package to give my value of the beta for any value of the tuning fixed value of the tuning parameter. And then for logistic regression or nonlinear regression, you can show that you can still write this in the form with some approximation, but this x pseudo and y pseudo will depend on the previous value of beta. When if you think about iterative computation, it will depend on the previous beta. But again, with some approximation, we've shown that you can stop in one step and still get very good solution. So basically, that we have a software now that will implement that through the help of GLNet package, and it is a very speedy implementation of the method. And then we have proved some results, like these are well-known results for your classical setting. For example, those who have worked on machine learning, asymptotic theory are very familiar that, for example, adaptive lasso compared to lasso, which is introduces some extra weight, and that has something property called oracle property. So what's the oracle property we are not familiar with? So adaptive lasso with some, we select some after fitting the algorithm, it will select some variables, and it will return an estimate of coefficients. And these are called non-zero variables. So the oracle property says that under adaptive lasso, if you do the algorithm, those beta hats you get, it has asymptotically a normal distribution. And you can write down the variance over matrix. And then what the advantage of that, because you have this distribution theory, now you can say that the variables that have been selected by the algorithm are the statistically significant because of the because of standard theory. So that's why you see the adaptive lasso is a very popular algorithm, because of this kind of orthogonal property and as well as the consistency property in the sense that you will always select as n go to infinity, you will select the correct set of variables. And we showed that in our study, which is more complex because of the heterogeneous data structure, some of the same theoretical result holds with the same data convergence and so on. Okay, so that's sort of the main methods and the theory. Now let me show you some applications, like go through simulation studies and some real data examples. So here is a simulation study based on the true model is a logistic regression, it's a classifier. You have to predict like who has the disease versus not. It's supervised classification because we have level data and we have to predict who has the disease or not. And we know the true model. The true model has two sets of variables. One is the Z variable, which are the overlapping variables to the outside studies, and then the W variables, which are the unmatched features. And there are 150 of them. And this is the sample size ratio between the external and the internal study. So I assume the external study is 10-fold larger than the internal study, but the external study does not measure the W variable. And then in this figure, what I'm showing is that as the sample size for the main study increases, how the model performance will change over time, where the model performance is showing in terms of very use statistics, because it's a binary classifier, so it's a natural metric. And then this red line, it shows the best model performance I can ever get. I know the true model, right? And because I'm doing simulation, and if I did the prediction based on the best possible model, which is the true model, what is the kind of the accuracy I'm going to get? So you can see that the best performance I can hope to get is 75% AUC value. And anything model I feed based on the data should be smaller than that. And so then now I'm showing the performance of three different methods. So one is like these two curves is like, so the green line is basically if I only analyze the main study, forget the external study, where the main study is Z and W, and I fitted I think this was based on lasso. So I fitted a lasso model, and then you can see that as sample size increases, so for small sample size, the model performance is low, but as sample size increases, it converges towards the best possible model, which is the true model. That is the variable consistency of lasso that you can see simple simulation. The blue line shows that somebody might decide that the external study is so large, even though the W is not measured. If I develop a model only based on Z, what would be the prediction performance of that model? That might be pretty good. But here you can see that in a small sample size, it actually beats the other model. But as the sample size getting larger and larger for the main study, of course, the model performance of the external study does not change that much. But the model that uses data on W for the main study will be big eventually, because W has a pretty big pop. And now if you compare the two methods, one is that if you ignore the external study, or our method, which tries to combine both the main study and the external study, you can see a clear benefit over a fairly long range of sample size. Of course, at some point they will converge, because both will going to converge towards the performance of the best model. But you can see over a long range of sample size, there is a very significant gain in performance. And this is the kind of some of the post-selection inference results that we talked about. So again, this is for the now based on adaptive lasso. Suppose we use adaptive lasso, and then we have selected some variables based on the adaptive lasso will give you some variables that we select in data analysis, and then we want to say which one of them is significant. So we have to do a proper positive correlate correction based on the p-value that we get for those significant variables based on the adaptive lasso. And then we want to see that if you want to maintain the false discovery rate at 5% level, are you seeing empirically we can actually maintain that false discovery rate? And here you can see that it is a bit conservative, that when you're trying to make it 5%, we are maintaining at about 3% level, but still it maintains it. But it's not ultra conservative, that is somewhat lower. And then this shows the coverage probability. That means for the variables that were selected to be considered by the adaptive lasso that to be associated or non-null, if the adaptive lasso will give a point estimate and confidence interval. We can ask the question how many times the confidence interval actually covers the true value of the parameters, right? That's the usual coverage probability, but this is in a post-selection context. And you can see that in a small sample, a relatively small sample size, it falls a little bit short of the 95%, but as the sample size increases, we start maintaining the coverage probability. And finally, these are the power, like what is the power of the algorithm for selecting the true variables, the variables that are actually predictive of the outcome. And you can, I have partitioned the variables into two sets. One is the overlapping variables, on which we are actually borrowing information from the external study, and the unmatched variables, where there is no information from the external study. And what we are showing is the power, again, this is just an adaptive lasso, but we are showing that if we have chosen the variables only by applying the adaptive lasso only to the main study, that would be the power that is shown in the blue curves. And this shows the red one, so if we did the adaptive lasso based on combining the main study and the external study using the GMM approach, this would be the power for selecting the true non-null variable. And you can see that for the Z variables, where we have gained information, and because the sample size is so much large, you get a huge gain in power for selecting the correct Z variable in the algorithm. The W variables is interesting, although you do not expect to gain power because by borrowing information, because there is no information on W from the external study. But we still, for small sample size, we still see some gain, and the gain happens because there is complex correlation between W and Z variables. And so if we select the right Z variables, it also helps me to select the right W variable. And because we are getting some power for selecting the overlapping Z variables, it's also helping to improve the power of W variables for smaller sample size, but this benefit disappears as the sample size increases, which is expected because there is no external information on the W. Okay, so coming towards the end of my talk, let me talk about that application I mentioned. This is actually a very timely application and a very interesting data set, which is the UK Biobank data set, which is a data set about 500,000 people, which I introduced earlier, and they have collected a lot of baseline information on the study participants and almost 500,000 people. And then more recently, they have released data set on proteomics data on about 1,500 or so proteins, about 50,000 or so subjects in the course. And there's already a paper which has been put out in the preprint where they analyze the data, but only data on the people who have both the proteomic and the risk factor data, and develop a model for predicting risk of a number of chronic diseases like heart disease, stroke, breast cancer, 10 or so different diseases. So we wanted to see if we can do better because they are only using the data on the 50,000 people, but because those 50,000 people have the proteomic data and the risk factor data, but now that we have this algorithm which can combine information from the what you call the quote-unquote external study, in this case is the people within the UK Biobank who does not have the proteomic data but only the risk factor data, can that information help? Or how much that helps? So this is a little bit more about the model that we are fitting the standard risk factor data, which are available for everybody, can be classified into this kind of factors like social demographic, lifestyle, biomarker, personal medical history. So we are going to, for each disease, we have done literature survey to identify what are some of the known risk factors for this disease. Like for example, I was talking about if you're thinking about heart disease, what is the known risk factor? That would be age, BMI, body mass index, blood pressure, cholesterol level, and smoking habit and alcohol habit. These are called standard known risk factors. And then on top of that, we want to include in the model now this 1,500 or so protein to see that is the protein adding value to the prediction. So we have do the analysis for 5 different diseases like breast cancer, colon cancer, coronary, CVD is the heart disease, stroke, and asthma. And the first row, 2 rows, I'm showing some basic information on the data set. And so what I'm showing in the first row is the number of, so this is a model I'm trying to develop for what is the probability that somebody will develop any of this disease in the next 10 years of their life. Like starting with the people who did not have the disease in the beginning of the cohort, and if you follow those people over time, and what's the probability that they will develop the disease in the next 10 years of so it's a 10-year probability. And then, so this is the shows the number of in the cohort, in the training data set, or in the main study, where people who had both the proteomic data and the risk factor data, that is the calling main study, how many cases of each type you have seen that happened in the data set. And this shows how many cases that are happening outside that main study. Right? Remember, because main study is only 50,000, which is 1/10 of the larger study. So there is obviously a lot more cases that happen, outside the main study. So you can see almost 10 times more cases are observed in the outside study. So you can see that there's a lot of potential power gain in that outside the main study. And these are the number of risk factors that are included, other than the proteomics. Proteomics is set 1500 protein going into each model, without further any kind of pre-screening. So we're allowing the machine learning method to select the variables and all that. So we're not doing any pre-screening. But the risk factor data, these are the number of risk factors we have included for the different disease based on the literature review. And then here is the main result. So summary of the main result. So you can see that if you fitted a lasso model only with the main study data, which is like the standard analysis that the other paper has done. So this is kind of the area under the curve you're going to get. Like, it can see varies from 60% to sometimes very low, sometimes 70% to for heart disease about 76%. And now if you show that the performance of the method, the model that we built based on combining both the main study and the external study, that is you will see that consistently you get improvement. Sometimes you get big improvement, like for example, colon cancer, the area under the curve went from 61 to 67% almost, which is a huge improvement in terms of predicting model performance. For asthma is another, I think asthma, the model based on only the main study is kind of unstable. So it's very poor performance, but then when you build a model with the integrating the two type of data, you see a much improved model performance. So it's not always you see a consistent improvement. And the reason we don't see always the same improvement because the amount of improvement depends on a lot of different factors. The sample size, I mean the number of cases that you have for different diseases are different. The number of risk factors you have included is different. So all of those decided kind of have an impact on how much this helps or does not help. But at least consistently we see some improvement across all diseases, sometimes larger than the other. And so that's sort of again coming towards the end. So this is sort of I described the problem in a simple setup, right? So I say like there is one internal main study and then one external study, and how to borrow the information from that one external study. But now you can think of a much more complex pattern, where, for example, if going back to the biology example, you might have people who have the different type of data from different modality. Some people might have only risk factors and proteomics. Some people might have risk factor and metabolomics and imaging data, but not the proteomics data. So all kinds of combinations are possible. And in this case, again, people are interested in developing very comprehensive model, including all kinds of modality of data to predict outcomes, right? But if you want to develop this use standard method, what will happen? You will only use this portion of the data where those people were everything, right? So you lose a lot of this data. So what you need to do is that you can partition your data into different patterns. And for each pattern, you can fit what is called a corresponding reduced model. And then take the parameters of the reduced model and transfer it based on the same equations I showed. And you just have more equations because now there are more patterns, more external studies, and each external study may correspond to a different pattern of this kind of what variables observed. So it's at least mathematically, it is very straightforward how to extend that, because just basically to the GMM equation, we extend the more equations now. And then finally, we would just say point I want to make about that. There is a key assumption we made about the transportability of certain parameters from one population to another population. But you might ask the question that what happens if this heterogeneity assumption is homogeneity assumption is not satisfied? Can you do something better, data adaptively, so that from the data you can say, okay, the other population, the external study is actually valuable for analyzing the main study. And the answer is yes, in principle. So what you showed is that remember that we calculating the weight matrix for the GMM, there is a role of the delta matrix. The optimal weight matrix is for the delta inverse, I defined, and delta is the variance covariance matrix of the estimating functions. And there, if you look at there is here the there are two sample sizes are playing its role. One is the sample size for the internal or the main study in, and the other is the sample size for the external study. And so from these, so you can see that if the external study is very, very large compared to the internal study, for some parameters, those external studies run dominant. And if the external study is actually heterogeneous, it can create noise because you are estimating, you're saying that the parameters should be the same, but and you are putting a lot of weight on the external study to estimate those parameters, but because of heterogeneity, those parameter transportation assumption has not been equal. So then what we can do is that instead of putting so much weight, or instead of thinking of the fixed weight, we can introduce a tuning parameter. That instead of 1 over n, let's suppose try a set of tuning parameters, and where it can range from 1 over n to larger values, so that larger values will mean that that we are putting less and less weight to the external data. And we don't have to fix the weight. We can try multiple tuning parameters, and then through the cross validation using the main study, we can see which tuning parameter or which weight gives the best predictive performance. So that's why you can introduce another tuning parameter in the model to account for this potential for this heterogeneity between populations. And that will be a potential solution to this heterogeneity problem, which sometimes people worry about. And the nice thing is that it is very straightforward to implement. If it works, then we have to still implement it. That all we are doing is that we are modifying the weight matrix, right? So the basic algorithm will not change. So that means we can still, for each value of the tuning parameter, we can fit that whole model fitting exercise to the GLNet package, which is very powerful. And all we have to do is now we have to try it multiple times with different weight functions, and then decide which weight function gives the best performance. All right, so that brings me to the close to my talk. So I think I'm going to skip some of the details. So there are a few more details I'm going to skip, but this is the summarize the main content of the talk is that we believe this HPL GMM approach, the heterogeneous transfer learning based on this GMM technique, provides both a very principled but also practical method for building high-dimensional models while integrating disparate data sets, which is a very important problem, very increasingly common in all domains of science, where people are trying to develop very high-dimensional models. But actually, if you look at the data size, where you have all of the features very small. So you really have to combine multiple data sets which have different features. And that is I think, understudied problem. And there's a lot of potential for both statistics and machine learning people to work on this. And I think, at least for this kind of problem, where you're trying to develop kind of regression model with penalization, this is a good method to start with. And I mostly focused on developing linear models, like the additive effect of the different variables, but this could be easily extended to nonlinear effect. It's a matter of changing the design variables. And this is a very, very fruitful area for the research for young people. And finally, I would say I just kept this slide for as a proud ISI alumnus. I thought I would give a small piece of advice for that is on my own journey, like I'm going from a PhD student to being a faculty to and then I was at NIH in between. Like some of the things we learned, and I think that are still very valuable. I feel like as a student, you should try to learn core skills as much as possible, which include math, probability, computing, but focus on the core skill, not the soft skill as much, because those will be harder to learn in the future. But at the same time, we should not just box ourselves in that core skill. We should have a broader curiosity beyond your subject areas and math and stat, and that will help you to think about the applications where you should take this your core skill and what kind of societal problems you want to solve. To do that, you know what kind of problem exists in the society first, and have a little bit of a understanding at a deeper level. So that's why broader curiosity is also very important. Another thing I would encourage ISI students who are technically very strong in improving the communication skill. And not only I'm talking about the English communication skill or something, but communicating math in a simple language. Like if there's a complex theorem, avoid, just don't focus on the regularity conditions, but tell your friend or who does not understand the theorem, like what does the theorem can help you to do in a very simple language that does not require you to understand a lot of math. Because that skill will always needed, and that does not happen overnight, and you need to keep practicing that skill. Like, and there's a very famous quote by Feynman who says, if you do not explain something simply, then you do not understand yourself. And that I really believe that is very important. And if you are working on more applied areas, like if you try to, kind of understand your hypothesis, context, and data, don't see data as just a matrix. You really need to understand what the variables mean. You really need to go into the what is the biology or what is the sociology or whatever is the science behind those variables, how it was collected, what is the quality of the data. You do have to have and we are always very excited. We have algorithm, we want the data, and we want to quickly go and analyze the data. But we really have to step back and understand where the data came from before it comes into. Finally, we say, we have to always do at the current age, we have to always promote our own work. That's what has been the practice. But I think humility has a role to play, and we have to make sure that we have a good balance of promoting your own work, but approach it with a lot of humility, because science is something that always sort of shows you that how little you know. So that's always a good thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Milan. Any question?
I'm not from statistics background, rather from computer science background and a lot of machine learning. So I have one question. When you are training on training of smaller models, let's say on external data, how many such different data sets you use? Because very similar idea today we use in large language models, but here we use your second idea where the tuning parameter is used instead of allowing the change in the main model and the parameters. But there, in context learning, I was not aware of all this work. I mean, in different names we practice all these things. But in context learning, we use many different smaller models. So in your case, how many different smaller models?
Yeah, so that's what I was coming toward the end. That although I showed the main applications in terms of the only one smaller model, definitely you can extend it pretty easily, like a 5 model or a 10 model. But if you are thinking of very, very large number of models, I think you have to think about other aspects of it, that can create noise also, right? Because so many parameters, right? So one interesting question we have not solved it yet. So it's a little different question, but I think there's a similarity that suppose the external model is also very high dimension. That means many, many parameters. So we have hundreds of thousands of parameters, millions of parameters. And can we then use those parameters and then to plug into those equations I said? And the asymptotic theory which I showed, that that there's a nice property of those estimating functions, that assumes that those parameters are finite dimension. Okay, but what happens if those parameters are also increasing with sample size? So that's something we are studying. That if you have many, many parameters, which is sort of similar to many, many models, and how will this method still work?
Okay, so currently you use only one smaller model.
One it could be multiple models, but the idea is that the dimension of the models are not very large.
Okay. Yeah. One more question: that when you retrain on external data set, so how do you manage computationally? You freeze the W, because in the main model you have Z plus W, right?
Right.
So do you freeze W part? Otherwise, how will you retrain the main model based on external data set? Because external data set, let's say theta Z, right?
Yeah.
But main model has theta ZW.
No, the main model has beta. Beta because
okay, let's say that combines both Z and W.
Right.
Now, when you retrain on external data set, so how do you manage W?
Right. So that was the math I was showing. That that there is a relationship between the thetas, which is the eliminate the W, and the beta.
Right.
And there's a mathematical relationship in terms of those equations, right? So we are not retraining it. So we are taking advantage of the equations and using equation is additional piece of information. In addition to like your standard objective functions, like which comes from a likelihood or least square, whatever. So no, we don't have to refit. So the idea is that actually we may not have the data from the external study. Somebody might have figured the data model and they are only willing to share the parameters. And maybe the uncertainty estimate. So we do not have that flexibility. All we need to know what model they fit, right? Without knowing that what kind of model fitted, we cannot move forward. But as long as they tell me that this is the model I fitted and those are the parameters, we can move forward.
Okay, and my last query is that I think because of that low sample size, you did try neural network, right, as a nonlinear regression.
Right.
Because sample size is really very small compared to them. Thank you very much. Excellent talk.
Yeah.
There are more questions after that. Thanks.
How do you guarantee that when you are adding more data from external experiment, your main model is sort of at least not hardened, right? So how do you guarantee that?
So if we assume that the transportability assumption is correct, then it's guaranteed to improve the efficiency, right? But if you are not sure about the transportability assumption is correct, that's when you bring in the tuning parameter. So that at least you guarantee that it will not hurt. Suppose the external study is so different from the internal, it should not be added at all. But by varying the tuning parameter, I should be able to determine that, okay, if I add that tuning, a lot of weight to the external study, my prediction in the internal study is becoming worse, right? But I will be able to determine that from the data itself. So that's why the tuning parameter idea will work in that setting. Right? So to guarantee that we will never hurt.
So the transportability assumption is just purely assumption, or you can sort of verify it?
You can verify it, right? Because you have both the internal and external, and you can fit the internal model in the main study. You can fit the reduced model, and you also have the reduced model from the external. So you can check parameter consistency, whether they are. Of course, you can do exploratory data analysis to check whether they are similar. But if you want to do more formal, I would like to do this kind of tuning parameter.
Thank you very much.
So Nilanjan, one quick question. In the external model, you're assuming that only the estimates of the parameters are transported to the main model.
And maybe the standard errors too.
Maybe the standard errors. If instead of that you had, the individual data points, of course the same method won't work, but there must be some method by which to compare how much of gain you will get if you had, individual data as opposed to summary data of the as estimates of parameters.
Right. So that's an excellent question. So first of all, the method will still work because what you can do, like if you take the individual level data and fit a model and take the parameters and put it into this thing, but you can think about you may be losing some efficiency, right? Because you have given up the advantage of the individual level data from external studies. So what are the potential methods you will have individual level data? So you can think about one way of thinking about this, for example, in the UK Biobank, where we already actually have the individual level data. So one potential is like imputing the missing variance if you have the individual level data. But the imputation has this in this kind of high dimensional setting, it has very strong assumption. So what do you have to impute? You have to impute the W variable, which is a very high dimensional, conditional on the Z and A, right? And so that's what the imputation requires. So it requires very strong modeling assumption and then very high dimensional, it can become quite cumbersome. Whereas our setting, we do not need any assumption about the distribution of the W, X, and Z as the joint distribution other than the transportability assumption. And so we are working on based on the outcome. But suppose the imputation model was correct, right? Somebody could build a beautiful imputation model which is correct. Then I do expect there to be some loss of efficiency compared to the individual level data analysis. But how to characterize the loss of efficiency theoretically is an interesting question actually.
So Nilanjan, aside from imputation, one could also regress out and look at the residuals to fit W. That's another model of data integration that's happening. And there, of course, it's you can probably compare, but we can talk about that later. So individual data points versus summary data, that poses another class of problems.
Yes.
So we have very little time. Maximum one more question if you have. So it seems there is no more question. Please thank Nilanjan. Please wait for cultural program. People have worked very hard. Our students have practiced very hard. I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Srivastava, for conducting this session. I will request Professor Srivastava and also Professor Chatterjee to remain on stage. May I now request Professor Bandyopadhyay to felicitate the speaker on behalf of ISI and Professor Srivastava to felicitate the speaker on behalf of ISI Alumni Association. Please come on stage.
Some memento from my side.
Thank you very much.
And this is coin that was Government of India issued this coin on 125th.
Oh, okay.
So that was a few years back,
Wow.
but this is also for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm very happy with you.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor.
The faculty of ISI made this institute proud over the years through their outstanding research and the laurels that they received for their remarkable work. I will leave the podium for Dr. Jan Jha to conduct this part of the program in which some ISI faculty will be felicitated for their outstanding achievements in 2023.
Thank you. Please call us.
Hello. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. As a young faculty member of the institute, it gives me immense pleasure. It gives me immense pleasure to celebrate the achievements of my senior colleagues who have received prestigious national and international recognitions in the year 2023, which have made ISI proud. I would like to call upon stage our director, Professor Sangamitra Bandyopadhyay, and the head of Interdisciplinary Statistical Research Unit, Professor Amita Pal, to felicitate the recipients. Our first recipient is Professor Arup Bose. Professor Bose did his BStat, MStat, and PhD from ISI. He joined ISI as a faculty member in 1991. During his illustrious career, spanning more than 4 decades, he has received many prestigious awards and fellowships, some of them being SS Bhatnagar Award in the Mathematical Sciences in 2004, J.C. Bose Fellowship during 2019 to 2023. He is also a fellow of the Indian Society for Probability and Statistics. He has written 6 books and more than 100 journal articles in probability and statistics. In the year 2023, Dr. Arup Bose received the prestigious International Statistical Institute Mahalanobis International Award 2023. Professor Bose, can you please?
It's a real pleasure and congratulations. Hey, hold on.
Sir, I would like you to invite to say a few.
So, Jayanta had already warned me that it cannot be more than 1 minute. So, it's a pleasure, it's an honor to be recognized by your own institute. For the young people, I just want to say that awards are incidental. What is important is hard work. and have continued to work hard. And if you get award, that's a bonus. And the monetary part of it is really not important. I have sort of given away almost everything that was given as an award in this specific instance. So to the younger people, just work hard. Don't aim for the awards. They will come, and when they come, that will inspire the next generation. That's the only benefit that you get out of the awards. Thank you very much.
Our next recipient is Professor B.S. Dayasagar. Professor Dayasagar is the head of the Indian Statistical Institute, Bangalore Center. Professor Sagar received his MSc and PhD degrees in Geoengineering and Remote Sensing from the Faculty of Engineering, Andhra University in 1991 and 1994 respectively. He has published over 90 papers in journals and has authored and guest edited 14 books and special theme issues for journals. His recent book, Handbook of Mathematical Geosciences, reached 1 million downloads. He is an elected fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, the Indian Geophysical Union, the Indian Academy of Sciences. He received the Dr. Balakrishna Memorial Award from the Andhra Pradesh Academy of Sciences in 1995, the Krishnan Gold Medal from the Indian Geophysical Union in 2002, and the Georges Mathurin Award 2011 of the International Association for Mathematical Geosciences. In the year 2023, Dr. B.S. Dayasagar has been elected as a fellow of the Indian National Science Academy. I would like Professor Sagar to speak.
Yes, in 1 minute I will speak, and it's a great honor and very humble to be elected as fellow of Indian National Science Academy. And I would like to, I'm so grateful to the person who has actually appointed me to Indian Statistical Institute Bangalore Center, Professor Shankar Park. And because institute affiliation makes a lot to get this kind of honors. And I'm also grateful to the director, Professor Sangamitra Bandapajay, for her trust and confidence in me. She made me as a head of Indian Statistical Institute Bangalore Center. So, in addition to that, I am so grateful to the committee, that is Abstract Planetary Sciences Selection Committee, and the evaluators who evaluated my works mostly on mathematical morphology-based spatial algorithms in geosciences and geospatial data sciences. And with this, I will just close this. Thank you very much.
Our next recipient is Professor Utpal Gadai from the Computer Vision and Pattern Recognition Unit, Kolkata. So Professor Gadai earned his bachelor's and master's degree in computer science and engineering from Jadavpur University in 1994 and 1997 respectively. He received his PhD in computer science from ISI in 2005. Professor Gadai's area focuses on developing AI models for language and vision tasks, with a significant emphasis on creating trustworthy and explainable AI systems. In addition to his academic endeavors, he actively engages in industry research, holding 11 patents, including 6 granted patents, comprising 3 from the US and 1 from Europe. Professor Gadai has been honored with several prestigious awards, such as the CNRS Aged Postdoctoral Fellowship from France, the Young Engineer Award from the Indian National Academy of Engineering in 2006, a research fellowship from the Indo-US Science and Technology Forum in 2011, and a JSPS fellowship from the Japanese Society for the Promotion of Science in 2017. Professor Gadai has been elected as a fellow of the Indian National Science Academy in 2020.
National Academy of Engineering.
Sorry. Professor Gadai was elected as a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering in 2020.
Good evening, everyone. So, just 4 days before I was felicitated by Indian National Academy of Engineering for this fellowship. So, I got this badge from them. But this felicitation by our own institute is always that gives a very different feeling. So, I gratefully acknowledge that this idea of our institute authority. And it's another pleasure because today is the Foundation Day for this institute. So this also added a different level of pleasure. And also this any recognition is not for me as individual. So it's I dedicate it to all my students, scholars, and also my mentors and promoters, so nominators, everyone. So I share this pleasure with everyone. And so when I look back in 2006, I was about to move to IIT Kharagpur because they offered me a position. But the director, Professor Shankar Kumar Pal, he kind of didn't allow me to go there because I remember that one Saturday he called me to in his office and he well, not that you don't go there, but the kind of conversation we had, you stay back. So I stayed back, and I really gratefully acknowledge his suggestion that probably I did the right thing because the kind of research environment ISI can provide, it's still unique in India. And later on also, I gratefully acknowledge the kind of promotion I got from our current director, Madam, is phenomenal. So thank you all and good evening again.
Our next recipient is Professor Devashish Goswami from Theoretical Statistics and Mathematics Unit, Kolkata. He did his BStat, MStat, and PhD all from ISI. Then he joined ISI Kolkata as a faculty member in 2002. During his illustrious career, he has been conferred with various awards and fellowships, some of them being Bhatnagar Prize in 2012, JC Bose Fellowship during 2016 to 21, as well as during 21 to 26, Swarn Jayanti Fellowship in 2009, INSA Young Scientist Medal in 2004, BM Bilda Prize in 2006. In the year 2023, Dr. Devashish Goswami has been elected as a Fellow of the Indian National Science Academy.
Fantastic, Devashish. That's a-
I would request Professor Goswami to say a few words.
Thank you all. It's really a great honor and great pleasure for me. And particularly, I'm overwhelmed by the fact that basically, in ISI is something different. Because ISI is my home. I was a student throughout, and except for a brief few years of postdoc, I'm again joined as a faculty. So it's really when you get some felicitation from your home, it's something different. And whatever humble thing I've done, I basically owe all to ISI in some way or the other. And my teachers, my seniors, my juniors, my colleagues, and I'm really proud to be the part of my senior and younger colleagues. Many of whom are really, they have done fantastic work and also being felicitated, and it's really a great honor. Thank you very much. And in this particular moment, I would like to dedicate this to the late Professor K. R. Parthasarathy. He passed away just a few months back. One of my mentors and whom I really owe a lot. Thank you very much.
The next recipient is Professor Neena Gupta from the Theoretical Statistics and Mathematics Unit, ISI Kolkata. Professor Gupta is working in the area of computative algebra and affine algebraic geometry. Earlier, she completed her PhD at ISI Kolkata under the supervision of Professor Amartya Kumar Datta. She is the recipient of the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize in Mathematical Sciences for 2019, the DST ICTP IMU Ramanujan Prize for the year 2021, Nari Shakti Puraskar from the Honorable President of India for the year 2021, and the Ganit Ratna Award for 2023. In the year 2023, Dr. Gupta has been elected as a Fellow of the Indian National Science Academy. She has also received the TWAS CAS Young Scientist Award in Mathematics 2023. Would like to-
Make us proud and continue this.
I would request Dr. Gupta to say a few words.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm really honored being felicitated by my own institute. What a pleasant coincidence for me. Today morning, I visited my school. So they also felicited me today. I'm really grateful to the people here present and those who are not also present. I owe a lot to them. I learned. I did my MMath from ISI and PhD. So I owe a lot to my PhD teachers. I remember those days very vividly that I almost knew nothing when I came to ISI. And I struggled a lot during my initial days to come up to those basics. Thanks to the teachers and their sympathy with which they have taught me, they brought me up. And they are really very helpful. They never discouraged me, always encouraged me. If I forget, if I don't know anything, any definition or anything, they will say, okay, this is a simple thing. They will just sketch the definition on the right hand side of the board, and it made my life really very simple. This is because of this place, ISI, I could come to this level. And I try my level best that I impart the same kind of teaching which I have got in ISI to my students. Thank you.
Our next recipient is Professor Arthur Roy from Theoretical Statistics and Mathematics Unit, ISI Bangalore. Professor Roy completed his BStat, MStat and MStat from ISI in 2000 and 2002 respectively. Then he did his PhD from Cornell University. He has received various awards and honors, some of them being Young Statistical Scientist Award in the Theory and Methods category from International Indian Statistical Association in 2021, Swan Jayanti Fellowship from Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. He has also been editor of Sankhya Series A. In 2023, Dr. Parthoni Roy has been elected as a Fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences.
Sure. More.
I would like to request Parthada to say a few words.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's really overwhelming for me to be here and give this short speech. And I would like to thank everyone, all my professors, from which I've learned a lot, and they've also inspired me through their work. And also my colleagues, both senior and junior colleagues, and also the collaborators, from which, of course, I learned a lot, and also students. When we teach, we learn. So thank you very much, everyone.
We have two more recipients who are not present here, but I would still announce. So the first of them is Professor Jayadev Sarkar from Theoretical Statistics and Mathematics Unit, ISI Bangalore. Professor Sarkar did his bachelor's and master's at the University of Calcutta and his PhD at IISc in 2006. Then he left for the USA and worked with several stalwarts in the area of Hilbert function space theory, including operator theory, for half a decade. He has been working at ISI since June of 2011. He has trained several PhD students and postdoctoral fellows. He was awarded the NASI Scopus Young Scientist Award in 2016. He is also the academic secretary of the Ramanujan Mathematical Society. In 2023, Professor Sarkar has been elected as a fellow of National Academy of Sciences. Because he is absent today, his award will be sent. Yeah, our last recipient is Professor Arunabh Singh from ISI Delhi. Professor Singh did his BA and MA from University of Delhi in 1978 and 1980 respectively. After that, he did his PhD from Princeton University in 1987. He joined Indian Statistical Institute in 1987. He has received various awards, some of which being the following: PWAS Siveri Cheng Prize 2017, Economic Theory Fellow 2016, Fellow of Econometric Society, Infosys Prize in Social Sciences in 2012, Mahalanobis Memorial Medal of Indian Econometric Society in 2000. In 2023, Dr. Arunabh Singh has received the Professor A.L. Nagar Fellow Award given by the Indian Econometric Society to an outstanding Indian scholar. Again, he is absent, he will be given the award.
Thank you, Dr. Jha. It has been a very emotional moment and as well as very inspiring. We will now take a short break of 5 minutes, during which you can enjoy the refreshment outside. And now it's 5:28. So within 5:35, we expect you all to take your seat and enjoy the cultural programs. Thank you.
বেঁধে নিন সামনে তো সেটা করেছো অসংখ্য হ্যাঁ এগুলো হয়ে যাবে
এলেই তো পাবে, থাকবে না।
এই আমার মোবাইলটা জানো আমার
ওই সুদীপর্ণাকে বলো, সুদীপর্ণার কাছে তাই জিজ্ঞেস করো না। পেয়েছে পেয়েছে পেয়েছে। এই তুমি পয়েন্টারটা নিয়ে নাও। তোমার ওখানে রেখে দিচ্ছি।
দুদিন হয়ে গেল তো
আরেকটা কোথেকে দিবি তুফান?
আর ওদিকে দুটো আবার করা আছে,
একটা লাগবে না দুটো লাগবে?
ওদিকে দুটো করা আছে।
কোথায় দেবে শোনো? দেখি 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 দাও দেখি দাও।
আপনার পজিশন আমি জেনে গেছি।
এটা
ঠিক আছে, ওটা কোনটা?
এটা কোনটা?
তুমি এটা বন্ধ করো না। আরে তুমি না, ও তো হয়ে গেছে। 15-16
দিবি তো,
আরে 15টা তুমি দিয়ে রাখো না।
15টা দিলাম।
না না, এটা 15, ভোকালে 15,
ঠিক আছে,
হারমোনিয়ামে হচ্ছে তোমার 16,
ঠিক আছে,
আর এখানে হচ্ছে শ্যামলদার হচ্ছে 1,
1
শ্যামলদারটা 1 দাও। ব্যাস।
বাড়াচ্ছি, সামনে বাড়াচ্ছি।
ঠিক আছে, পরে কথা বলছি।
You are once again welcome to the cultural segment of today's program. Professor Mahulanuvish, or PCM as he is fondly referred to, also had an abiding interest in cultural pursuits. He shared a powerful bond with Rabindranath Tagore. Notwithstanding his stature as a towering man of science, PCM was deeply appreciative of the brilliance of Tagore's works. It is very appropriate, therefore, we begin today's cultural event with compositions of Tagore. Let us welcome on stage an alumnus and former faculty of ISI, Professor Amita Majumdar, who will perform two songs of Tagore. Mr. Shamul Bhattacharya, another retired worker of the institute, will accompany her with tabla.
Thank you. A very good evening to all of you. My introduction as a former faculty member is sort of incomplete in the sense that I joined the STEP program in 1972. So eventually retired as a faculty member. So it's a long association of 50 years. So I'm very happy to sing here today, and I thank Professor Shashimon Srivastava for inviting me here. গানগুলি মোর শৈবালের দল গানগুলি মোর শৈবালের দল গানগুলি মোর ওরা বন্যা ধারায় পথে হারায় উত্তম চঞ্চল গানগুলি মোর শৈবালের দল গানগুলি মোর ওরা কেনই আসে যায় বছরে অকারণে অবৈধে ওরা কেনই আসে যায় বছরে অকারণে অবৈধে চিহ্ন কিছুই যায় না রেখে পায় না কোনো পথ গানগুলি মোর শৈবালের দল গানগুলি মোর ওদের সাধন তো নাই কিছু সাধন তো নাই ওদের বাঁধন তো নাই কোনো বাঁধন তো নাই ওদের সাধন তো নাই কিছু সাধন তো নাই ওদের বাঁধন তো নাই কোনো বাঁধন তো নাই পুরাশরা পুরাশরে গৃহহারা অভিশরে ঘুরে যাওয়ার স্রোতের পারে করে টলমল গানগুলি মোর শৈবালের দল গানগুলি মোর ওরা বন্যা ধারায় পথে হারায় উত্তম চঞ্চল গানগুলি মোর শৈবালের দল গানগুলি মোর তোমারি ঝর্ণা তলার নির্জনে মাটিরে কলস আমার হারিয়ে গেল তোর ঘরে তোমারি ঝর্ণা তলার নির্জনে রবিও আসতে নামে শৈল তলে গলা কাপড় গগনে উড়ে চলে রবিও আসতে নামে শৈল তলে গলা কাপড় গগনে উড়ে চলে আমি করুণ ধারার পদতলে নীরবে কান পেতে রই কান বলে তোমারি ঝর্ণা তলার নির্জনে তুমি মোর জাগরণ বেড়াই তারি খোঁজ তোরে মেতে গানাই মেতে আপনার নাচ চলে তুমি মোর জাগরণ বেড়াই তারি খোঁজ তোরে মেতে গানাই মেতে আপনার নাচ চলে সারাদিন অনেক দূরে দিনের শেষে এসেছি সকল চাওয়ার পাখি দেশে মেঘোয়ার অসীম ধারার তীরে এসে প্রয়োজন ছাপিয়ে জানা সেইখানে তোমারি ঝর্ণা তলার নির্জনে মাটিরে কলস আমার হারিয়ে গেল কোন ঘরে তোমারি ঝর্ণা তলার নির্জনে Thank you. Please, I would like to mention something. Professor Sanghamitra Bandyopadhyay, the director of ISI, is recipient of all the important awards, including Infosys and Padma Shri. But she has not been felicitated. I feel very bad about that. And she felicitated everyone else. So I think next year we should make an effort that she gets felicitated by the president. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for the meaningful songs which you rendered with such depth of meaning. I can still remember her efforts in maintaining the cultural ambience in ISI. And thank you, Srijit Bhattacharya, first year Vista student also, to accompany her. We move on to the next performance. A dance by Dr. Shomonetra Munshi, also a part of ISI alumni, presently associate professor in the Economic Research Unit, who will showcase the classical dance style Bharatanatyam. Please welcome Dr. Munshi on stage.
সুইচটা করে দিচ্ছি ঠিক আছে অফ করে দিচ্ছি
Thank you, Dr. Munshi, for your extremely graceful performance. PCM and his wife were great patrons of music, art, and literature. Musical evenings were very common at their residence. And it was not unusual for great scientists like Shotendranath Bose to take part in them with performances on musical instruments. I now welcome on stage Tanish Kumar Prasad, a second year BStat student who will play Raga Bhupali on the violin. Srijit Bhattacharya, first year BStat student, will accompany him on the tabla.
বলেই হয়ে যাবে কি একটা ইনস্ট্রুমেন্ট দিই আর ইনস্ট্রুমেন্ট মাইক আমি কিছু দিচ্ছি এই কম্পিউটারটা কিন্তু হ্যাঁ আমি ওটাই করছি কম্পিউটারটা কোনখানে কোনটা দেখো তো স্ট্রাইক স্ট্রাইক মাসেরটা কোনটা বন্ধ করো বন্ধ করো
Thank you, Tanish, for your wonderful rendition of the Raga Bhopali on the violin. We will now have a dance performance by Polomi Ghosh from Machine Intelligence Unit, who will present another classical dance style, Kathak. I invite Polomi to the stage.
कलाई मोरी मरोड़ी कलाई मोरी कलाई मोरी कलाई मोरी चूड़ी चटकाई तेराई तो चोरी से करवा लगाई हरी चुनरिया जो छत से छीनी हरी चुनरिया जो छत से छीनी हरे रंग लाज से गुलाबी रंग दो लाल नंद के लाल लाल छिड़नाई बस रंग गुलाल मोहे रंग दो मोहे रंग दो
Thank you, Poonami, for your wonderful performance. Watching this, I can remember, or I'd love to utter the words of famous teacher Dirozio. That is, expanding like the petals of young flowers, I watch the gentle opening of your minds. Probably our teachers are also thinking like that. So now I would like to welcome Shampreet Chakraborty, a first year MStat student. He is going to recite a poem, and his poem will tell about the celebration of life, celebration of some people in our society whom we often get in our difficult times. So let's listen to Shampreet's poem.
হ্যালো, নমস্কার। এই কবিতাটি আমার খুবই পছন্দের একটা কবিতা। আশা করছি আপনাদের সবাই ভালো লাগবে। গলির মোড়ে একটা গাছ টানলে, গাছ না গাছের প্রেতচ্ছায়া, আঁকা বাঁকা শুকনো কতগুলো কাঠির কঙ্কাল সামনের দিকে এলোমেলো তুলে দেওয়া, রুক্ষ রুষ্ট রিক্ত জীর্ণ, লতা নেই, পাতা নেই, ছায়া নেই, ছালবাকল নেই, নেই কোথাও এক আঁচড় সবুজের প্রতিশ্রুতি, এক বিন্দু সরসের সম্ভাবনা। সেই পথ দিয়ে জরুরি দরকারে যাচ্ছিলাম ট্যাক্সি করে। ড্রাইভার বলে, ওদিকে যাবো না, দেখতে পাচ্ছেন না ছন্ন ছাড়া কটা বেকার ছোকরা রাস্তার মাঝখানে দাঁড়িয়ে আটা দিচ্ছে, চোঙা প্যান্ট, চোখা জুতো, রোখা মেজাজ, ঠোকা কপাল। ওখান দিয়ে গেলেই গাড়ি থামিয়ে লিফট চাইবে, বলবে হাওয়া খাওয়ান। কারা ওরা? চেনেন না ওদের? ওরা বিরাট এক নৈরাজ্যের, এক নেই রাজ্যের বাসিন্দে। ওদের কিচ্ছু নেই, ঠিক নেই, ভিত নেই, রীতি নেই, নীতি নেই, আইন নেই, কানুন নেই, বিনয় নেই, ভদ্রতা নেই, শ্রীলতা স্বাধীনতা নেই। ঘেসবেন না ওদের কাছে। কেন নেই? ওরা যে নেই রাজ্যের বাসিন্দে। ওদের জন্য কলেজে সিট নেই, অফিসে চাকরি নেই, হাসপাতালে বেড নেই, মেলায় খেলায় টিকিট নেই, অনুসরণ করবার নেতা নেই, প্রেরণা জাগানো প্রেম নেই। ওদের প্রতি সম্ভাষণে কারো দরদ নেই। ঘরে বাইরে উদাহরণ যা ছিল, তা ক্ষুধাহরণের সুধাহরণের উদাহরণ নয়, তা সুধাহরণের ক্ষুধাহরণের উদাহরণ। শুধুই নিজের কোলের দিকে ছোলটা না। এক ছিল মধ্যবিত্ত বাড়ির এক চিলতে ফালতু একটা রক, তাও দিয়েছে লোপাট করে। তাই এখন পথে এসে দাঁড়িয়েছে সড়কের মাঝখানে। কোত্থেকে আসছে সেই অতীতের স্মৃতি নেই, কোথায় দাঁড়িয়ে আছে সেই বর্তমানের গতি নেই, কোথায় চলেছে নেই সেই ভবিষ্যতের ঠিকানা। সেচহীন ক্ষেত, মনিহীন চোখ, চোখহীন মুখ, একটা স্ফুলিঙ্গহীন ভিজে বারুদের স্তূপ। আমি বললুম, না ওখান দিয়ে যাবো, ওখান দিয়ে আমার শর্টকাট। ওদের কাছাকাছি হতেই মুখ বাড়িয়ে জিজ্ঞেস করলুম, তোমাদের ট্যাক্সি লাগবে, লিফট চাই? আরে এই তো ট্যাক্সি, লে হালুয়া। সন্ন্যাসী চেঁচিয়ে উঠলো ছোকরারা, সিটি দিয়ে উঠলো, পেয়ে গেছি, চল কনসিবেল ঘুরিয়া। তিনটে ছোকরা উঠে পড়লো ট্যাক্সিতে, একজন ড্রাইভারের পাশে, দুজন পেছনের সিটে। বললুম, কত যাবে? ওই কাছেই, দেখতে পাচ্ছি না ভিড়? সিনেমা নয়, জলসা নয়, কোনো ফিল্মি তারকার অভ্যর্থনা। একটা নিরীহ লোক গাড়ি চাপা করেছে, চাপা দিয়ে গাড়িটা উঠাম। আমাদের দলের কয়েকজন গাড়িটার পেছনে ধাওয়া করেছে, আমরা একটা খালি ট্যাক্সি খুঁজছি। কে সে লোক? একটা বেওয়ারিশ ভিখিরি, রক্তে মাংসে দলা পাকিয়ে গেছে। ওর কেউ নেই, কিচ্ছু নেই। শোবার জন্য ফুটপাত আছে, তো মাথার উপর ছাদ নেই। ভিক্ষার জন্য পাত্র একটা আছে, তো তার মধ্যে প্রকাণ্ড একটা ফুটো। রক্তে মাখামাখি সেই দলা পাকানো ভিখিরিকে ওরা পাঁজা করে ট্যাক্সির মধ্যে তুলে আনলো। চেঁচিয়ে উঠলো সমস্যায়, আনন্দে সম্পৃত হয়ে, প্রাণ আছে, এখনো প্রাণ আছে। রক্তের দাগ থেকে আমার ভব্যতা ও স্বাধীনতাকে বাঁচাতে গিয়ে আমি নেমে পড়লুম তাড়াতাড়ি। তারপর সহসা শহরের সমস্ত কর্কশে কঠিনে, ইটে কাঠে পাথরে পিচে দেওয়ালে বেজে উঠল এক দুর্বার উচ্চারণ, এক প্রত্যয়ের তপ্ত শঙ্খধ্বনি। প্রাণ আছে, এখনো প্রাণ আছে, প্রাণ থাকলে স্থান আছে, মান আছে। সমস্ত বাধা নিষেধের বাইরেও আছে অস্তিত্বের অধিকার। ফিরে আসতেই দেখি গলির মোড়ে গাছের সেই শুকনো বৈরাগ্য বিদীর্ণ করে বেরিয়ে পড়েছে হাজার হাজার সোনালী কচি পাতা। মরমরিত হচ্ছে বাতাসে, ধীরে ধীরে ঘনপত্রপুঞ্জে ফেলেছে স্নেহাদ্র দীর্ঘ ছায়া, যেন কোনো শ্যামল আত্মীয়তা। অবিশ্বাস্য চোখে চেয়ে দেখলুম কঠোরের প্রচ্ছন্নে মাধুর্যের বিস্তীর্ণ আলোচনা। প্রাণ আছে, এখনো প্রাণ আছে, শুধু প্রাণই এক আশ্চর্য সম্পদ, এক ক্ষয়হীন আশা, এক মৃত্যুহীন মর্যাদা। নমস্কার।
Thank you, Shampreet, for your soulful recitation. We earlier mentioned the relationship between PCM and Tagore. The vast body of artistic work that Rabindranath Tagore has left behind as his heritage not only encompasses the literature, poetry, songs, essays, plays, and paintings, but also a unique, graceful dance style called Ravindra Nritya. I would once again welcome Dr. Shomanetra Munshi back to stage for a Ravindra Nritya recital.
রেডি হলে বলবেন, চালাবেন না। চালাবেন, রেডি? আপনি রেডি? হ্যাঁ, রেডি।
Yeshu Shemu Yeshu Shemu Mano Kamu Kamu Ora Krishna Ora Shambashi Viru Kini Satya Sashi
Thank you, Dr. Munshi, for another overwhelming performance. We will now move on to the next item. So far, we have been enchanted by some incredible performances in the classical form of music and dance. Now, it is the time for a shift to the world of Rajasthani folk and Bollywood songs through some intelligent fusion. Our very own BSTAT students will promise to generate positive vibes here through their creativity. Please welcome the BSTAT team, Rohan Chakraborty, Oishit Bhattacharya, Tanish Kumar Prasad, and Srijit Bhattacharya. Have their fusion and let's enjoy their performance. Rohan Chakraborty is BSTAT second year student and Oishit Bhattacharya, BSTAT first year student, and Tanish and Srijit are already known to you. Okay, let's enjoy.
কোনটা দিচ্ছ আমাকে বলবে কিন্তু এটা একটু পড়ে কোনটা 10টা
তোর তো তবলা তাই
11টা
লাইনটা দেবো বসে যাও এদিকে মিডিলে এই যে মার্কিংটা আছে না এটা মিডিল
দেখে দেখে
সব বসে তো নাকি নামাবো
এখন নম্বর একটা
ওর একটা মাইক লাগবে তোর একটা লাগবে ওর একটা লাগবে তোর একটা আর কর লাগবে যে একটা
বলো সোজা করে দিবে আর নামা আর নামা
গিটারে আনেনি কোন হ্যাঁ দিচ্ছে তো একটা
কি করবি
এক্সট্রা করতে হবে
কিসের কর বলবে তারপরে তো
হ্যাঁ বলছি
কিসের কর
এক্সট্রা একটা লাগবে তানপুরা
ফোনে অত বড় তো কর নেই কাছাকাছি রাখতে হয়
হ্যাঁ এখানে রাখলে হবে।
আস্তে আস্তে এটা এক্ষুনি লাগবে ওটা পরে
নেক্সট
তুই তাহলে দিয়ে দে আমাকে
এটার আওয়াজ যাকে এটা ঠিক আছে তোমাদের সন্দেহ
লাগাবে না ওখানে লাগাবে
সব করা সেট করা
চেঞ্জ করে দাও এটা হয়ে যাবে
না এখানে ঠিক আছে মোবাইল আমরা
এই তো বললো
এই তো ঠিক আছে দশে ছিল মোবাইল হ্যাঁ 11 হ্যাঁ
অফ করা দেখে নিবি বাজানো
হ্যাঁ আসছে এবার করো এলো দাদা
তুই খুলে লাগা
একটা ভোল্টেজ নোডে কাটটা নড়লেও ভালো
मेरे मन ये बता दे तू किस ओर चला है तू क्या पाया नहीं तूने क्या ढूंढ रहा है तू जो है अंधेरी जो है अनसुनी वो बात क्या है मितवा कहे धड़कने तुझसे क्या मितवा ये खुद से तो ना तू छुपा बता दे तू इस ओर चला गया क्या पाया नहीं तूने क्या ढूंढ रहा जो है अनकही जो है अनसुनी वो बात क्या है बता मितवा कहे धड़कने तुझसे क्या मितवा ये खुद से तो ना तू छुपा गवगणिसा गवगरसधनी निधा अब परमा गवगणिसा निधा 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 गवगरसधनी निधा 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 पर पर सामने निधा निधा मंगवा जीवन नगर में प्रेम नगर में आया नजर में जब से कोई है तू सोचता है तू पूछता है जिसकी कमी थी क्या ये वही है हाँ ये वही है हाँ ये वही है तू एक प्यासा और ये नदी है काहे नहीं इसको खुल के बताए जो है अनकही जो है अनसुनी वो बात क्या है बता मितवा कहीं धड़कने तुझसे क्या मितवा खुद से तुम छुपा
सामने सामने मोबाइल লাগবে না ইয়ে লাগবে এটা লাগবে ওটা দিয়ে না ওটা ফেলে দাও মোবাইল আছে ও আচ্ছা আচ্ছা শেয়ার করো তোমাকে তো খেলাধুলা ফোন করবে ভাই ওটা দাঁড়াও না আরে 4 মিনিট লাগে ব্রেক করতে দিয়েছো চলো দেবো পারবে সমান বাংলাটা একটু জোরে ঠিক আছে আমি যাই জোরে দাঁড়িয়ে হ্যাঁ কি একটু
केसरिया उमर मीठा बालम केसरिया पिया परदेस गयो आओ पधारो हमारे देश पधारो हमारे देश साजन साजन मैं करूं तेरी साजन जीप चढ़ी लाई घटे न पल बढ़े लाई घटे न पल बढ़े तेरी साजन तेरी घड़ी जो निरावान ओ प्यारे ढोला पधारो पधारो हमारे देश केसरिया पलवा हमारे केसरिया बालमा सांवरा सांवरा मारी ओ सांवरा मारी प्रीत निभाजो प्रीत निभाजो जी हमारी प्रीत निभाजो जी ओ सांवरा तुम्हारी ओ सांवरा सांवरा तुम्हारी प्रीत निभाजो प्रीत निभाजो जी हमारी प्रीत निभाजो जी मैं तो दासी जन्म जन्म की मैं तो दासी जन्म जन्म की तुम्हारे अंगना रमता आजो जी हो तुम्हारे अंगना रमता आजो जी मीरा के प्रभु गिरधर नागर मीरा के प्रभु गिरधर नागर तेरो पार लगा दीजो जी सांवरा मारी ओ सांवरा मारी प्रीत निभाजो प्रीत निभाजो जी हमारी प्रीत निभाजो जी हमारी प्रीत निभाजो जी हमारी प्रीत निभाजो जी
So that's nice. So what a performance. And our heartfelt thanks to the BSTAT team for your highly enjoyable performance. And we have almost come to an end. So our last performance is an illustration of fusion in dance by interpreting Tagore's song Anandadhara Bohiche Bhugane in the Bharatanatyam style. I would welcome our own student Nandita Sen, BSTAT first year student, to come on stage and perform Anandadhara Bohiche Bhugane by her own unique style.
Light up. Light up.
যেটা শেয়ার করলেন সেটা তো আপনি যেটা করলেন
Thank you, Nandita, for your beautiful performance. It's great to see the cultural wings of students and faculties who are deeply involved in academics. Our great master, Professor Maulana Bish, had always dreamt of a complete life, and we are just trying our level best. I now request Dr. Muhammad Zafar Anis, Secretary, ISI Alumni Association, to conclude today's event by giving a vote of thanks.
We now come to the last item on the agenda of the Foundation Day function. It is my pleasant duty and proud privilege to deliver the vote of thanks. The ISI was formally established on 17 December 1931 in a meeting presided by the pioneering Bengali Indian industrialist Sir R. N. Mukherjee, wherein he was elected as the first president of the institute and Professor Mahalanobis as an honorary secretary. So ISI's association with the industry goes back to its very foundation, and that legacy, if I may say so, is being carried on by ISI even today, largely to its SQC and OR division. Traditionally, the ISI Alumni Association celebrates Alumni Day on a Sunday around December 17th, the Foundation Day of the ISI. Since the last couple of years, ISI has also been celebrating its Foundation Day. Since this year, December 17 happens to be a Sunday, Professor Srivastava, Chairman ISI-AA, suggested that the ISI and the ISI-AA could jointly organize the Foundation Day celebration. I am grateful to Professor Srivastava for coming up with this brilliant idea, and I am equally grateful to our director, Professor Shanamati Bandyopadhyay, for accepting this proposal. I am obliged to Professor Bandyopadhyay for extending a warm welcome to one and all. I thank Professor Shankar President ISI, for attending this program in spite of the many demands on his time and addressing the gathering. Your suggestions are very welcome, sir. My best thanks are due to Professor Nilanjan Chatterjee, Bloomberg Distinguished Professor at the Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore, USA, for accepting our invitation and delivering a wonderful lecture. I am sure your lecture has been well appreciated. I thank you for sharing your kind advice to our students. I take this opportunity to congratulate our colleagues who have facilitated today and hope we shall have more such occasions to celebrate. I am grateful to Professor Amita Majumdar and Mr. Shyam Kanti Bhattacharya for the beautiful rendition of Ravindra Sangeet. My thanks are due to my colleague, Dr. Sominata Munshi, for the two items she performed. A word of appreciation is due to Ms. Paulini Ghosh of MIU for the excellent Kathak recital. Our students deserve special thanks for their well-appreciated performance. I thank the program unit for covering this program. I shall be failing my duty if I will not acknowledge the support of all the audiovisual and the state office. Thanks are due to the CSSC for the technical support provided, thereby making it possible for our alumni outside Calcutta to join this program virtually. Needless to mention that this program would not have been possible without the unfailing support and cooperation of all workers at the Director's Office and the CE's office. I am obliged to each one of them. I am grateful to my colleagues who have taken their time off to be present with us here in this auditorium to celebrate this special day. Last, but certainly not the least, I must thank all the alumni who have joined either in person or online for this celebration. Thank you.